Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Genius Podcast. In this episode of the podcast, Gail is joined by life coach and author Rhonda Britten. Rhonda shares her personal experiences with fear, how to identify and move past your base fears, and to ultimately live fearlessly. First, a warning to listeners. This episode contains mentions of traumatic events, including suicide and murder. Discretion is advised.
Rhonda Britten, it is so good to see you and have you on the podcast today. And
well, thank you, Miss Gail.
Yeah. And here we are. It is July in 2024. I can't believe this. We have known each other almost 10 years.
Get out of town.
I know.
Wow.
We met each other at a mastermind retreat years and years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And you've done a lot of different things over the years. And I can't wait to talk to you today about what you've been doing and what you're planning to do. But, and I almost hesitate to start here, but I think your story is so powerful. And I would really love for you to share this with listeners, because the minute I heard that, I just felt it all over my body. And every time I hear it, and I've heard it so many times now, but it touches me deeply. And I just really feel like it has a powerful message to share with other people. So would you mind sharing that?
No, not at all, Gail. Of course, I'm happy to. I know you're referring to the worst day of my life, yes. Right? Because most of us, the worst day of our life actually becomes the vehicle in which we blossom. You know, we don't necessarily look at it that way for maybe a few decades, or, it could be years, it could be decades. But, eventually when we look back on our life, we can see how the seed of our purpose, the seed of who we are meant to be, the seed of, our convictions is usually birthed on the worst day of our life. And for me, that was when I was 14 years old. And I grew up in this little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year, 2 restaurants, Douglas House, fancy hotel buffet, and Big Boy. It's all we had. No McDonald's, nothing, nothing, zero, zitcho. And my parents were in the middle of getting a divorce. And it was Father's Day, and my father was coming over to take my mother and me and my 2 sisters out for Father's Day, which is a big deal because there's 5 of us and we really never went out to eat. And so we're going to go to the fancy Douglas House buffet. Very excited. And so I'm in my mom's bedroom. She's fluffing up a beehive hairdo, putting on her blue eyeshadow, rose-colored lipstick. My dad, I can hear him coming in the front door. Come on. My mom looks at me and I'm like, okay, I'll go. And so I start walking towards the back door with my father, and he starts, yells to my sisters, come on, let's go. So me and my mom start walking towards the door. My sisters are still in the bathroom. We have 1 bathroom, so they're fighting for the mirror. And as we're going out the door, it starts raining. And my father looks at us and says, well, I'm going to go get my coat from the car. And so me and my mother start, walking out gingerly through the rain. And my father opens his trunk. And I notice out of the corner of my eye, he hasn't grabbed a coat, but he has grabbed a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, you made me do this. You made me do this. And he fires. Now I start yelling, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? Stop, Dad. What are you doing? Stop. And he cocks the gun for a second time, points the gun at me. And I absolutely believe I'm next. He blinks, I blink. He blinks, I blink. We're just frozen in that time moment. And my mother, with literally her last breath, screams out, no, don't. And my father, realizing my mother is still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that second bullet goes through her abdomen and out her back and lands in the car horn. And it just starts wailing. And then my father cocks the gun again, drops to his knees, puts the gun to his head, and fires. So in a matter of minutes, 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide. Now, I don't know how other people would respond to that, but this is how I responded. It's my fault. right? I did nothing heroic during those 2 minutes, right? I didn't grab the gun. I didn't jump in front of my mother. I didn't, kick his shins. I didn't do anything heroic. And now my mother is dead. And so from that moment, I understood that I don't get to be happy, right? I don't get to have true happiness. That's out the door for me. You don't get happiness when you don't do the right thing, right? When you don't save the person you love, you just don't get that. And then for the next 20 years, I lived two lives. On one hand, I got a scholarship to college. I, graduated at the top of my class, so on the outside, I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. But in the inside, I didn't deserve to be alive because I should be the one that's dead, not my mother, right? I should be the one. I should be the one. So then for the next 20 years, I lived this double life. On the outside, I pretended everything was fine. Like I said, got a scholarship to college, just was fine. But in the inside, because of the destruction in my own mind and so much fear I was in, even though didn't think it was fear, I never ever uttered the words, I'm afraid, ever. I don't think many of us were trained to say those words, and I definitely wasn't trained to say those words. So for the next 20 years, I tried to kill myself 3 times. I became an alcoholic. I had 3 DUIs, spent a little time in jail for that third DUI. And it was that third suicide attempt that I realized something. I realized that I'm not very good at killing myself. Not skilled at it. Not good at it at all.
Shouldn't laugh at that, but it's
but it is. But I'm not good at it, right? And that third suicide attempt, by the way, they put me in a psychiatric ward to evaluate me because now it's my 3rd time. So now they're gonna, take me into the hospital. And I don't remember how many days I was there, 3, 4, 5 days, and a little straitjacket next to me just in case, little lockdown facility. And I remember my older sister Cindy coming. I'm in the middle of 3 girls. My older sister Cindy coming to see me. And have you ever experienced, Gail, somebody losing hope in you? Somebody looking at you and realizing that there is no hope, that maybe you are damaged goods, that you are never going to change, like you're never going to get over this. Well, that's how my sister looked at me.
Wow.
And I could see it, I could see it. And I was sent home. My sister leaves. She doesn't live where I was living at the time. I go home to my little tiny studio apartment. And I realize that I have to start over. And so what I do, I think I have a thought. What do you do in kindergarten? And you get gold stars on a calendar, right? So I actually went to the store, I got a calendar, gold stars. And for the next 30 days, I put a gold star next to anything I did, anything good, anything good. And I'm talking about good, meaning I got angry and I didn't break anything. That's where we were, right? Like that's where I was in my life, right? Like, I got angry, right? Or, I didn't have a drink. Instead of getting drunk, I didn't get a drink, right? So I'm talking very basic things, very basic foundational things. But after 30 days, and I had gold stars, I realized I was worth saving. And I began to do the hard things that changed my life. I was willing to see myself, I think, most importantly, clearly, because I think I wanted to blame my dad, and I wanted to blame my mom, and I wanted to blame, the world. I wanted to blame men, and I wanted to blame the society, and I wanted to blame the government. I wanted to blame everybody. But that day, I realized that all of those things don't have power over me. I do. And that was humbling, mortifying, vulnerable, devastating, and a seed of life. Changed my life, that moment of being willing to see myself through new eyes and be willing to be wrong about myself.
That is such a powerful story. And I just look at where you are now and what a happy and vibrant person you are and all that you have to offer. And you've started the Fearless Living Institute. And so that is a real mission for you, which I love. And I think there is a huge need for what you do. So tell me a little bit about that and what it's done to help support your growth and your journey from this dark moment.
Absolutely. So, God gave me the title Fearless Living because I was like, what do I call this, after a few years of doing it. But, I was working, so there are a few years passed, obviously, and now I'm, I'm taking classes, I'm doing workshops, doing all these things. And during those 20 years, by the way, I also took workshops and classes because I've always been a learner, but I just couldn't kind of get over the hump. You know what I mean? But what really transpired is, I was working for a coach and I was doing PR at the time and I was helping him. And he would always tell me, he was one of the very first coaches, and he would tell me all the time, oh, you're going to be a better coach than me. And I would look at him and go like, did you forget about the 3 suicide attempts, the 3 DUIs, the time in jail, and the alcoholism? And the murder-suicide? Did you forget about that? Because I really, really, really believed, and I think this is one of the most important things that I hope your listeners hear, is that I really believed that I didn't earn a different future because of my past. Mm. Now, I'd heard all the stuff, right? I'd gone to church. I'd done all self-help. I knew that, everybody's no, you're not I knew that logically, but I really fundamentally still was tied to my past. And so I remember being at his house. And again, I'd been taking classes now. I've been doing great, doing learning and growing and, and he would just always tell me that. And I'd be like, you're crazy in my mind, and we're sitting in his office and, I'm sitting on the couch and he's at the board and we're brainstorming some workshop he's going to come up with. And all of a sudden, I don't know if I've ever told you the story, Gail.
I don't think so.
All of a sudden, through the corner of my eye, it's going to cut a little woo-woo, little crazy now, little crazy moment. The sky opens up, a cloud comes out with a book on it, and the book comes out and it goes like this. It shuts, right? And it goes back into the cloud. And I'm like, what just happened? What am I hallucinating? I haven't been drinking. Don't drink anymore. What the heck? What's going on? And I look over at my boss, the guy, my client, and think, well, it must be for him because it's not for me because I can't do that. And he's talking. He has no clue. And then I turn around because I'm convinced it's not for me. So I turn around and I'm like, somebody must have come in, and I just, must be overhearing him, looking everywhere. And there's nobody else but me and him. And he's completely oblivious. Well, Gail, the message was, the download I received was the answer to every single question I've ever asked. And the direction that you must now go and share this. Me? What are you, nuts? And did you forget about the DUI? Did you forget about all that? And thank God I was in a program, a 4-year practitioner program to become a spiritual counselor. And I run to my minister the next day. Thank God I had an appointment. And I told her this whole story. And I'm like, well, that's crazy. And she goes, well, it sounds like you got the call. And I'm like, call? She goes, well, you got the call. And I'm like, yeah, but I have 3 credits left to my bachelor's. I haven't finished. I need to get a master's. I need to get a PhD. And then I need to write a book. So it's going to be for 7 years for sure. Like 7 years for sure. And she just kept saying to me, well, if you got the call, you're ready. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Okay, I got that. I got to finish my semester. The guy comes in, and I got to do that. I got my book. It's going to be 7 years for sure. And she just kept saying, you got the call, you're ready. And I remember it took me about 6 months to surrender, to even have an inkling that this was for me, that I was meant to support people. Because again, I loved supporting people, but I thought I was too damaged to do that. So, what that message was basically everything I teach today. Except, of course, I've also, that was the seed of it. And then obviously I've grown and moved, expanded beyond that. But inside that message was the seed of everything. And the seed was everything is fear, right? So, we can talk about procrastination. We can talk about overwhelm. We can talk about not being supported. We can talk about any reason that people aren't moving forward in their life, whether in their business, whether, personally, how they view themselves, their self-perception, their self-acceptance, self-love, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, their mindset. We can talk about any of the reasons why that's happening. And again, everybody knows why they're not moving forward. Everybody knows that part. And they blame it and they believe, just like I did, I believed wholeheartedly it was for clear reasons. You know what? Well, look at these reasons, right? And people will be like, well, yes, those reasons are really good. But when I got that download and beyond that, I really started understanding everything comes down to fear. And until you understand how fear works for you personally, because we have I call it the wheel of fear, but it's personalized to each person. So once you understand what your wheel of fear is and how fear operates through you and as you and on you and at you, it's always going to trick you because it's masterful and it's meant to keep you safe, and it is fighting for your life. You know, it believes that it's fighting for your life, but it's not the life of possibilities. It's not the life of, joy. That's not the life. It's the life of safety. And it's literally fighting for your life. So it's got the greatest stories. It's got the greatest proof. It knows your whole life. It knows everything about you, right? And so it's got every message you need to hear to stop you in any way, shape, or form. So that is what I'm devoted to. I'm devoted to helping people master their fear. And I'm also devoted to helping people help people. So I train coaches. I have a new program coming out that I'm excited about for all coaches and all therapists and all wellness practitioners. But, so I support people in finding their wheel, moving them to the life that their soul, I say, live the life their soul intended. Mm-hmm. And of course, train the coaches that help them do that.
Mm-hmm. That's so great. So this is really, I love that it's a calling for you, and I can definitely tell that it's a calling for you. And I think that helping people address their fears, how do you do that? What is the way that you help them figure out which one is the one that's dominant and the one that is keeping them from really achieving whatever their potential is? How do you do that?
I thank you for that question. And the first thing I want to say is, most people think they know what they're afraid of. Like if you come to a class of mine, or if you work with me one-on-one, or work with one of my coaches, or read my book, Fearless Living, right? Mm-hmm. Whichever way you do it, you can do it through the book. You can do it, like I said, a class, a workshop, online, and with me as a coach or other coaches. The first thing is that people think they know what it is. Oh yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, because my mother always called me lazy. That's what I'm afraid of, or I'm afraid. I don't want to fail. I'm petrified of failure, right? And so people think they know what it is, and good, yay, you know something. And what I would say is that's a fear response. That's actually not your core fear, because that's the thing fear's letting you see, right? Now, for all of us, the generic version that most of us use words like this, but it comes down to not being good enough, right? Not being some form of not being good enough. And so that's what most people come with, and again, they may come with, oh yeah, I know, I already know what it is. I already know what it is. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I always go, yes, maybe, let's find out. And then I put people through a series of processes. Mm-hmm. And through the processes, it's kind of like the curtains part, right? The fog parts. And together, it becomes evident. It becomes so clear. And what the response of most everyone that does this work with me and in workshops, like I said, online, they feel the moment they get it, the moment it becomes like, oh my God, they say, now I understand my whole life. I understand why I quit that, why I married this person, why I divorced that person, why I went to school, why I didn't go to school, why I left that job, why I took that job, why I stayed at that job, why I won't do this. It kind of clears the path, and it takes it away. And this is really, really important. It takes away the self-blame, right? Because, oh, I didn't do it. I'm lazy. I just didn't have the courage. I didn't have the support. Well, okay. Or maybe it's just you're afraid to do it because it's literally the wheel of fear tells you you're going to die if you do it, And again, it doesn't say those words, right? But you, on some level, and again, you're not even aware of it most of the time. It's just really good at distracting you, like squirrel. Yes. Okay. Like it just gets you off track. But that's what fear's job is. And fear does a really good job. And this is what I want everyone who's listening to us right now to hear, is that fear loves you. It's not doing this because it's evil or bad. It just loves you, and it just wants to keep you safe. So, but when you can rip the Band-Aid off and actually see fear for what it is, it becomes a huge asset, and it becomes something that becomes fuel, and it actually helps you point the way.
Okay. So we're talking fear of failure or fear of success. Which one is it, or is it both? Or?
Yeah. Well, it's so fascinating because let's just look at it. So fear of failure is actually, I hate to say this because I know a lot of people think they have that fear. And again, it is a fear they may experience as what I said, like a fear response. So most people think of it this way. I bet most people know what their problem is. If you ask them, okay, why do you think you're not as successful as you'd like to be? Or why don't you have the love you want? Or why aren't you making the money you think you should have? Or, you're dying for. They'll say to you, oh, well, it's because I'm afraid to do this. And they may not use the word afraid, but because we're talking about fear, I'll say it. But they'll write a list, like I procrastinate, I haven't been able to get over this. I people please. I care too much about what people think of me. I compare myself. Like they all know, like a lot of people know what I call fear responses are. And those are the things that fear allows us to see. And we get distracted by those things. So we don't see the actual, what I call the trigger fear, the core fear. Because as long as I keep you busy with the fear responses and you keep trying to solve the fear responses, just like the chairs in the Titanic, you're not going to focus on, the big hole in the bottom of the ship. You're just going to keep on like, if I just get a better view, I'll be fine. Right. So I'm going to grab the 10 and let's just have fun here. Okay. So there's a trigger. There's a trigger, and the trigger is that thing that is your core fear that is unconscious, hidden, and was developed by the time you were 5. Okay? So you've had it your whole life. And you have been masterfully crafting it. Okay, you've been masterfully crafting it. So you're really, really agile with it. And that trigger, whenever you get trigger, and again, as you become awake to your trigger, you're going to start being able to see it when it happens. But in the beginning, you're not even most of the time, you're not even aware of it. All you're seeing is the fear responses, like, oh, the procrastination, the overwhelm, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, etc. So then you start doing the fear responses, right? And when you do those fear responses, we all know what happens. We hate ourselves, right? We dump into the core negative feeling. It's like, oh my God, I did it again. And we have the feeling. Okay? This is what I say is the feeling you're afraid to feel, the feeling that's running your life. You don't want to feel it. And then when you feel that feeling, most of us have experienced what I call self-destructive behaviors, right? We go down to the pity party. I drank, right? So, we all have our things. So we want to be able to identify the trigger is the key, because once we can identify it, we can sniff it out before it moves us into a fear response. So what are some triggers? Let's just see what some triggers are. So, now this isn't, me reading this out loud is not you getting your trigger. Okay. This is just one kind of just having you think about it, so to speak. Right. So if you think about somebody that you love and admire, somebody that and I don't care if it's a person dead or alive. I don't care if it's fiction or nonfiction. It could be, a character in one of your favorite books, or it could be Jesus, right? It doesn't matter to me. Or it could be your, great uncle. But think of somebody who really matters to you, and their opinion of you matters to you. And if you say there's nobody like that, I'm gonna push back on that. But okay, just try to think of somebody. And would you be devastated? I'm just going to read the 10. Would you be devastated if that person you admire, really respect, and really how they see you matters, if they came to you and said, Gail, I never wanted to tell you this, but the real reason you're stuck where you are and you're not able to move forward is at the heart of it all is you're selfish. I know you look generous. I know you look like you're a giver. I get that. You're good at covering it, but you and I both know you're selfish.
Interesting.
Now, right? So most people will say, well, I'm not selfish. I'm not selfish. We know that because you're running from selfish, right? So, right. So when people, protest too much, right? Well, I'm not selfish. I'm a giver. Yeah. Because you're petrified to be selfish. You're petrified, right? So selfish. The next one, think about the person you love in a mirror. Stupid.
Mm.
It's okay. Is it okay to be called stupid? Is it okay to be thought of as stupid? Is it okay to be thought of as weak? Okay to be thought of as incompetent? Okay to be thought of as ordinary, just like everyone else? Okay to be thought of as a loser. By the way, that's mine. You know, I can smell loser a mile away. Yeah. Yeah, mine's all loser stuff. Loser, by the way, are people that, you know, give all they got, but never get over the finish line, right? That's not true when they're in freedom, but when they're in fear, that's what happens. Fake, you know, if you're a person that you really admire was like, you know, at the heart of it, you're just faking your way through life and you think you're so authentic, right? Lazy people, by the way, are people that keep extremely, extremely busy. It's not quality of busyness, it's just quantity. Invisible, you make yourself invisible, but you're dying to be seen. Or rejected. So you reject yourself before anybody else rejects you. So those are the 10 triggers. And, you know, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 popped up for you. And I don't know if you want to share if any popped up for you, Gail.
I'd probably say rejected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when people identify their wheel of fear,
sure,
what ends up happening? So let's just say yours is rejected. Mine is, like I said, loser. It again, like I said a little bit ago, it really opens up a world for you because then you can see all the places you've avoided, all the places you've bypassed, all the places that you haven't done A, B, or C because of that core fear. And again, your core fear is very, very subtle. So, you know, if I was working with you right now, I'd be like, okay, so how does rejected show up for you? You know, I would want you to prove it to me, right? I want you to prove that that's your trigger, because usually what happens is, again, let's just say 1% of my clients, if that, and I know everybody listening to us right now thinks they're in the 1%. So 1% of my clients get it the first time. 99% of my clients don't.
Interesting.
So yeah, because it's like fear goes, oh, let Gail think it's rejected. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let her get that one. But maybe it's really ordinary, you know, or maybe it's really selfish, or maybe it's really incompetent, and whatever. And then we move through the different fear responses, core negative feeling, etc. But then the good part comes, Gail. We then identify your wheel of freedom, and the Wheel of Freedom also has 4 components, and the most important one, key one on the Wheel of Freedom is your essential nature. And this is the part of you that you cut off and learn to hide by the time you were 5. You give it to everyone else, but you never give it. You very rarely give it to yourself. Now, before I move on, I just want to say one more thing. We're not all in our wheel of fear all the time. There's probably tons of areas of your life, Gail, where, you know, you're amazingly fearless. And I too, I have areas in my life where I'm tremendously fearless. You have people in your life that you can be fearless with, right? But then there's that person or that job or that, you know, that client or that, you know, opportunity or that whatever, that fear goes, oh, shut her down, shut her down, shut her down. This is not safe. Shut her down. Right. And this is where we need to tap into our essential nature, that part of you that was hidden long ago, because that essential nature is actually your activating principle, your brilliance, your light, your access point.
Interesting.
Yeah. So mine is authentic, just to give you an example. And I just want you to think for a minute, if my trigger is loser, do you think that I that I should be authentic? No. So the way that I'm wired and the way that you're wired is fear and the wheel of freedom, wheel of fear and wheel of freedom have us so wrapped, so tied, because the very thing the essential nature asks us to do, i.e. be authentic, will expose loser. My fear, right? I will fear that it'll expose loser. So I have always, ever since I was younger, I was one of those girls that wrote poetry, you know, like, and copied poetry and, you know, and just, you know, all the authentic. I just want to be authentic. My favorite saying growing up when I was 12, 10, 13 was CC Cummings, now I'm going to butcher it, is, you know, to be yourself night and day is the hardest battle of all. And again, I butchered that. But I was 12 years old.
Fascinating.
Right? Like I was 12 years,
yeah.
right? 12, right? My favorite book when I was 12 was Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? What? Right? So being authentic was that just was not welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So being authentic is my greatest asset. And it's also, whenever I move into a new area, still my greatest, the thing that I must move into, because because again, your wheel of fear and wheel of freedom don't change, and you're always going to expand into stretch, risk, die. So you want to keep growing, right? You actually want your comfort zone as big as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I move into a new area, there's good old loser coming up, and there's good old practice authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really interesting. So I'm going to have to read your book. I haven't read this book. I will put that on my reading list, which I love to read, and I haven't been doing as much lately. So be right up there. So in all of these cases, how long do you think it takes people to go through the process of really getting a handle on whatever it is that is their trigger?
Well, I have a preferred process. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my
Sure.
preferred process is you come to a weekend or a 2-day online program, because I take you through a journey for 2 days
Mm-hmm.
that not only opens you up to find the best wheel of fear and the best wheel of freedom for you. So if you go through the weekend, I'm not only going to take you through the process of discovering your wheel of fear and wheel of freedom, I'm also going to give you tools and skills. I'm also going to guide you how to pop out of that 2 days with a toolkit of how to move forward, right? Because you're going to be going into the world as you're on your wheel of freedom.
Mm.
And that's a different experience. Now, again, with some people, you've already been on your wheel of freedom, but other people are going to be like, what are you doing? Like what you're going to be, no, right. So to have that toolkit. So my preferred way is to come to a 2-day, and work with, me and my coaches through the process.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't support you, I have an online program. Go through the online program, just do it, maybe do it with a friend, but go through, because when you go through the online program, you also have me really giving the hints and tips like I do in the workshop. So I take you through the whole process. Now, obviously the shortcut is hiring a coach and just having them do your wheels. But I'm going to tell you that can be done in 3 sessions, 2 or 3 sessions. And what happens is it just becomes like your astrology chart, right? Oh yeah, I'm a Sagittarius, right? Oh, I'm ordinary, I got an art, and it doesn't actually, you don't actually learn how to use it. So it just becomes another thing you got under your belt of what you can call yourself.
Mm.
So I really encourage people, and again, you can do that. And if you believe you've done all the work, and then awesome. The other thing I say is it's usually, tricky to find, so I do encourage, like, that's another thing to come to the live events, because we work through them and we kind of get to the heart of it together, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And working with a coach. So, you can go through the online program and hire a coach for 3 sessions, and that would be fantastic. Or work with a coach for a certain number of sessions to help you integrate it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. You can read the book, and you can read it tonight. Just read chapters 2 and 3 and you'll have your wheels, right? Or what you think your wheels
Sure.
are. But again, it's about the integration rather than just the knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important to do that. I have my cat behind me. Are you hearing her?
Yeah, but I love it. It makes you human, Gail. I love it.
So she decided that she needed to be part of this interview and say hello to you.
I love it.
She's so funny.
Meow, meow. I'm going to meow back. Meow, meow, meow.
Oh my
meow.
gosh. I'm sorry about that. Anyway.
No, never apologize for a kitty cat.
So funny. All right. So obviously there's a process, and obviously there's some work people have to do, and understand that, like you said, knowledge is not really the thing that you want. You want the application of that knowledge so that you actually make a change for yourself. So
That's right.
I think that all makes total sense. So what are 5 keys to living fearlessly?
That's a fantastic question. Number 1, truly believing and taking this on that there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. 2, you do have a soul mission, and you do have a calling, and you do have a purpose. And the only thing that's stopping you from experiencing it is that darn wheel of fear. So, take up the mantle of live the life your soul intended. So, actually walk around and say, I'm willing to live the life my soul intended, and see how that vibrates in every cell of your being. And just imagine if you said that as a mantra for, a day or a week or a month. I'm willing to live the life my soul intended. I wonder what would come for you. I wonder what would come for you. 3, that you are exactly where you need to be, that there's nothing wrong. Like I said, nothing wrong with you. So you're exactly where you need to be in order to move to the next place. So be willing to forgive yourself for your past, forgive the wheel of fear, forgive whatever needs to be released so that you can let go of your past and move into your present. 4, this is something that we haven't talked about, but I'll just gently and quickly touch on it. The 4th thing is the key is to recognize the brain is your friend when it's in freedom, and the brain is your enemy when it's in fear. Right? So we're going to use the asset of the asset of the brain to actually work for you rather than against you. And lastly, I would say, I want you to take up this mantra as well. Am I making this up, or is it true? Because whenever you're faced with a situation and you're being triggered, if you repeat immediately, like, am I being triggered right now? Or am I making this up, or is it true? Really, really be willing to be wrong about everything. You must be willing to be wrong about everything to find the right life for you. I'll say that again. You must be willing to be wrong about everything to find the right life for you. So am I making it up, or is it true? Probably 90% of the time when you're not feeling it, you're making it up. And find the truth and learn the skills and receive the courage, live on that wheel of freedom so you can live the truth, your truth. Because we're all here for a particular reason. We're all here for a particular path. We're all here to live our destiny, whatever that is. So it's either fear or love, gang. So your choice. I choose love.
Love it. You are a beautiful soul, Ms. Rhonda Britten.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you so much for being here today on the podcast. It was a pleasure as always, and we need to see each other sometime soon.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
All right.
Thank you, Rhonda, for closing out Season 10 of the Creative Genius podcast. And we hope this episode made you think about your fears and consider them in a new light, so you can move forward and live fearlessly. This marks the end of Season 10, but we'll be right back into it next week with the start of Season 11, so stay tuned.